Today, we are going to share a topic on IoT, daily life people, bug hunting, and exploit techniques in IoT. Let's introduce ourselves. I am Yu Hao, a co-founder and a researcher of King. I'm working on GitHub program. My research area focuses on IoT and smart devices.
My name is Huiming Liu, a security researcher at Xuanwu Lab of Tencent Company.
GitHub is a security contest as well as a bug bounty program organized by King since 2014. These are what we are going to share today. Situations of IoT security. Most vulnerable categories in IoT. Attack vectors of IoT. IoT can do evil. Let's now check out the situations of IoT security. I guess we all have heard of a series of DDoS incidents several months ago. In late 2016, a malware called Mirai infected and controlled around 100,000 devices, mostly IoT devices. The botnet performs DDoS attack against several targets around the world. The most famous one is the Dyn attack on October the 21st. Dyn is a popular DNS service provider. When it was knocked down, many important websites were impacted and became unavailable. And the DDoS traffic at 1.2 Tbps created a world record. Besides Dyn, Mirai botnet also attacked and brought down a blog, Corruption Security, French ISP OVH, the telecommunication infrastructure of Liberia, mail server of WikiLeaks, at least 5 banks in Russia. It's definitely a weapon of mass destruction in cyber world. How does Mirai attack? Its target is IoT devices, mostly Wi-Fi routers and IP cameras. Although Mirai compromised a huge numbers of devices and made great damages to the global internet, the attack vector it employs is very simple. It only uses remote shell to compromise the target. Firstly, it attempts to connect to the Telnet or SSH service, and then, if authentication is required, it will try the generic weak passwords and manufacturer's default credentials in its dictionary. Speaking of routers, in 2014, GitHub already noticed the security problems and risks in routers. And began to accept their vulnerabilities. In October 2015, a whole year before Mirai, GitHub held a special session called Smart Routers Arena in order to review the problems. During the 3 years, GitHub accepted 32 vulnerabilities of routers. All of the vulnerabilities can result in remote root access. The routers are of 18 different top-selling models and of 11 different brands. These brands covers all the top brands of routers in the market of China. Half of the brands are also popular in the global market. In short words, we proved that most of our routers are streaking. It has been several months since the massive attack. The voice about Mirai is fading out. But based on the situations of IoT security, it's definitely not the end, but the end of the beginning. IoT security is facing 2 major problems: large numbers of vulnerabilities and huge destruction. Why so many vulnerabilities? Because IoT is an emerging market, which means manufacturers are still focusing on implementing products' core functions while ignoring security. We checked a recruitment website for startups and found more than 3,000 IoT companies. However, no one is looking for security engineers. The IoT industry also lacks standards, so manufacturers don't have methods to measure and assure products' security. Why do I call it a weapon of mass destruction? Because there are huge numbers of IoT devices. According to Gartner's estimation, the number of IoT devices will reach 8.4 billion in this year. Most of the devices are always online. They have no screen or only a small screen, so it's hard for the user to notice any abnormal behavior, and they play a role which is very close to users' daily life. In 2014, we noticed the security problems in emerging markets such as IoT, and we launched GeekPwn. Altogether, we have collected 117 vulnerabilities. All of them are high risk and can be exploited to get full control of the target. From the chart, we can see that 71% of the vulnerabilities aren't memory corruption, which means they don't require shell code to be exploited. 63% of the vulnerabilities are exploited alone and don't need to be combined with other vulnerabilities to get the full control. In a word, most of the vulnerabilities are easy and straightforward. Now, let's check out what are most vulnerable categories in IoT. All of these products were pwned in GeekPwn contest. They cover most of the categories in IoT and the smart devices in consumer area. And Mirai only attacks a small portion of them. GeekPwn is an open contest. The contestant can choose their own target, so the vulnerabilities reported can reveal white hat's focus areas. In the left chart, we can see that the target of Mirai, routers and cameras, make up a large portion in the vulnerabilities in GeekPwn. They are relatively traditional categories in IoT, and many security researchers have worked on them. Does this mean that these devices are most vulnerable? The answer is negative. We can make a rough assumption that exploit of memory corruption requires higher techniques. We count up the portion of memory corruption vulnerabilities in each product category and got the right chart. We can see that in three of four categories with most vulnerabilities, half of the vulnerabilities are memory corruption vulnerabilities, while in most of the rest categories, none is memory corruption vulnerabilities. As a conclusion, fewer vulnerabilities are reported in some categories, especially some new categories. They are not necessarily secure, but just neglected. So, if you want a good harvest in vulnerabilities, why not try some new categories of IoT products, which are the blind spots in security. Let's then check out the attack vectors of IoT. Actually, almost all of the attack vectors in IoT can be found in traditional PC and mobile phone. However, the popularity is different. From the cases in GeekPwn, let's see some most common attack vectors in IoT. Memory corruption attacks are the most, which count for 31% of the cases. Obviously, professional security researchers are familiar with finding memory corruption vulnerabilities. Besides that, there are insecure communication abuse, abuse of functionality, and logical input manipulation, code injection, and hard-coded crypto key, etc. Next, let's look into the details, and we will start from simple basic attack vectors and then move fast to some typical memory corruption attacks as a case study. Insecure communication abuse. Currently, considering computing resources and power consumption, many IoT devices don't use encrypted channel. If sensitive information such as credentials are transmitted over it, that makes a vulnerability. To exploit such kind of vulnerabilities, you only need the sniffing to get the information such as credentials, session ID, and then replay it. It involves tools like Network Sniffer, man-in-the-middle HTTP proxy, or Ubuntu One for Bluetooth sniffing. For example, in GeoPwn 2016, 2 digital safes were pawned in this method. In the first case, the user used a mobile phone app to control this safe. Both the app and the safe connected to a Wi-Fi and communication with the server on the internet. However, the communication between the app and the server doesn't employ SSL, but implemented a customized encryption algorithm, which is weak. So the attacker can perform ARP attack to become a man in the middle and sniff the traffic. And then he can decrypt the traffic to get the key. And this key can be used to unlock the safe. In another case, the user also used a mobile phone app to control the safe. They use Bluetooth to communicate. However, the mobile phone connects to the safe without pairing, which means the traffic is transmitted without encryption over the air. So the attacker can sniff the Bluetooth traffic and get the key. This key can also be used to unlock the safe. This is a brilliant case in GeoPwn 2015. In this case, the contestant exploited a combination of 6 vulnerabilities, which seems low risk individually. Here are 2 important ones of them, and their purpose is to upload a script file to the target device and then execute it. Firstly, there's a CGI service in the device, which can be used to move files. And a network logging service is enabled in the target device. And it doesn't make appropriate filtering before writing the log to the file system. So the attacker can first clear the previous log by moving the previous log file to another location. And then he can send the traffic to create a log file like this. Since the file system where the file locates is fat, the permission of the file is 777, which means the file is executable. The attacker can move the file to an auto-start location and reboot the device by using a CGI service. Then the command in orange will be executed during booting, and the Telnet D service will be started. Logical input manipulation. If the server side incorrectly trusts the parameter, for example, user ID, provided by the client, this makes a vulnerability. The client can send the manipulated parameter to the server and act as another user. For example, in GeoPwn 2015, a payment service was pawned in this method. In China, payment through QR code in mobile phone is very popular. The QR code is actually a one-time token for payment. Each time the user wants to do a payment, the mobile phone app will send the request to the server to get a QR code. In this payment service, the client app will send the request to contain a parameter called account number to identify itself. However, the server just simply trusts this account number. So the client can just manipulate the account number and request the QR code of other users. When the QR code was scanned at the checkout counter, the money will be paid from other users' account. Actually, the account number here is registered phone number of the users, so it can be enumerated by brute force. This is an example of code injection. A CGI service accepted a parameter and passes it to system call. However, it doesn't make appropriate filtering during the procedure and makes it a vulnerability. The attacker can construct a parameter to inject the command into it, and then the command will be executed through system call. In this case, the telnet-d command is executed, and the service is started. Because the input parameter may be used in several different places, a key point is to avoid exemption before the code being executed. The input should be constructed to be able to pass through all the places where it's used. Another typical type of code injection is SQL injection, which is so common and familiar that I won't describe it here. Hard-coded in crypto key. If the key is hard-coded in the client program, it will be a vulnerability. The attacker can reverse engineer the client program and get the key. Then the key can be used to decrypt or encrypt data, and the encrypted data can be stolen or manipulated. For example, in Gilpon 2016, smart luggage was found in this method. The user can use a mobile phone app to control the luggage through Bluetooth. However, the pairing password is hard-coded in the app, so the attacker can reverse engineer the app and get the pairing password. Actually, a most common scenario of hard-coded key is customized protocol with a symmetric key algorithm. Many manufacturers don't like to use SSL for different reasons, so some of them work out a bad solution. They implemented a protocol which is encrypted with algorithms such as AES and hard-code the key in the client. And next, Huiming will share with us a detailed case study.
Hello, I'm Huiming Liu. I'll present you some real cases and demos. Let's start now. First, I will share a vulnerabilities chain which can get the root shell of a router from the internet, and then we can use another vulnerability to get the login password of a web camera. And finally, there are some vulnerabilities that can be used to compromise your home security alarm. That's like from digital world to real world. In our opinion, the security of IoT devices is different from the traditional computer devices in the following several reasons. Unlike general computer devices, the IoT devices have limited access and computer capabilities, which leads to fewer attack surfaces, and the firmwares are often closed source. Besides, they are cheap but of huge amount. However, whether these features make the IoT devices more secure is questionable. It often turns out that those features making them more secure is just an illusion. It's a common sense that no system is absolutely secure. Besides, the features of IoT devices mentioned earlier can be also helpful for attackers. It's true that the IoT devices often have fewer ports open. However, we can still exploit them to achieve our attacking goals. Taking routers as an example, the 80 or 443 port is usually open. Then, the new features of the devices are attackers' friends. They are new, they are innocent, making them work has already cost several programmers many weekends. Some little bugs, who cares? Of course, there are also many other vulnerabilities to attack devices, but in this lecture, we will focus on the primary and the direct way. It's open import to root shell and more. If you own a router, then you can open it nmap to find the opening port. In this case, what can we can see some interesting 9000 port. Is it a new feature? It's good. Next, attackers will wish that the programmer did cost many weekends to make the feature work, but not have enough time to consider about the security. Our wish is actually the truth in many times. Sometimes you can't find the opening port simply by nmap or other dynamic method, such as UDP or something. So you maybe want to switch to static method, get the firmware, reverse engineering, or simply grep command should help a lot. Next, we will start to explain the techniques of the whole attack chain. In fact, all the vulnerabilities are in the binary that opens the previously mentioned 9000 port. The devices are usually not very expensive. We can get one and work with reversing, debugging, and testing. Then we can get some vulnerabilities. According to our bounty program competitors, it's not very tricky when you found the right way. We will cover the details in our following case studies. Now let's see what did researchers find in the binary in this case. First, the binary is in charge of the communication of clients and the router on the port 9000. The unsafe string copy function is used in several places. We select one that parses the INI configuration file to dip into. Then, a stack overflow can be easily found. In that configuration function, an unchecked string copy call was did from the licensed server to check stack. Great. If we can control the input string, we can create a direct stack overflow to point the router. Now we have a look at the code. The upper code piece is in the main function, where we can see that the router first call ETM initialize, then ETM configure, then finally ETM start. The lower code piece is in the ETM configure, which reads the server address from INI file to the memory. And in the ETM start function calls the something function, which then calls the parse server address function. You can see the function call chain from those code pieces generated by IDAPRO. Finally, in the parse server address function, there is a string copy from the previously mentioned location to the stack. But unfortunately, the source string is in the INI file, which is a fixed file. If we want to use this potential stack overflow, we need another vulnerability to modify it. Now let's see what they found. The vulnerability is in the HTTP communication process. We can send the HTTP request to inject data into the INI file. Now we use the code to show the details. The program reads the INI file into the memory and maintains a data structure about it. When our HTTP request has some cookie items attached, the program gets them from our request and save them to the data structure, which created from the INI file. And when the program exists, the data structure is written back to the INI file. It seems good. However, the program fails to filter the line feed. So if we input a line feed, the input cookie will be written to the following area of the data structure, where we will store previously mentioned server address. However, we still cannot control the router by far. Remember this main function, we can see that the stack overflow is in the ETM configure, but the inject method is in the ETM start function, which is behind the potential stack overflow function. So we need to inject the file and restart the router to trigger the program to execute from the beginning to trigger the stack overflow. A new vulnerability needs to found. As this diagram shows, an unauthorized restart command could accomplish that. The INI file could be reloaded upon restarting and trigger the stack overflow. Are those vulnerabilities enough to pawn the router? Apparently no. Nowadays, many devices have ASLR. This router has ASLR too. We will need an information leak to bypass the ASLR. The vulnerability is caused by the misusage of the smprintf function return value. We will then give some details about it. According to the reference, the return value of smprintf is the number of characters that would have been written. It is very misleading. And the parameter n is the maximum buffer capacity to fill. Next, we take a look at the real code inside the binary and try to understand the vulnerability. V19 variable is the return value of the smprint function, like the upper arrow point. It seems that the binary had a boundary check which is hex 100 in the middle piece of the code. Everything seems okay. However, the program misused the return value of smprintf, but we knew that the return value is not the actual length of the real return string, but the length of the string we intend to write into, regardless of the n boundary. So the boundary check by the V19 variable could be useless because the V19 variable could be far more larger than hex 100. And then the binary used the EM connection send function to send out data. Now we go on to see the EM connection send function. In the EM connection send function, we can find that the return value of smprintf is used to decide how many bytes to send to its clients. Now we can make the V19 really big. We can manipulate the router to send us more data than it wants to. It will be excellent if there are some address or libc in the responses. In fact, it turns out that there are. Then we can use the function address to break ASLR. By far, the vulnerabilities are ready. Now we will share the real exploit process. Remember, first, the stack is not executable, so we need to RP to execute our command. And to bypass ASLR, we use the information leak to get the libc base address. At this time, the INI file is a good lad. The left picture. Then we use the INI file inject vulnerability to place our shellcode into a stack. Now the evil license server address is in the memory. The INI file is still unchanged, like the picture shown on the right. Then we send the restart signal to the program. At this point, the program will first save the evil string into the file and then read it. The evil long shellcode will trigger stack overflow. By using RP, the router will be controlled by us. We don't have much time. Let's take a brief look at the shellcode. Step 1. We have used the stack overflow to control the PC register. Then we find the pop gadget to load the shellcode into the registers. Step 2. The register's value will be set like this diagram. The red font is the register that is being changed. Step 3. There is a good gadget, which we call wonderful gadget, in the libc. It is perfectly for us. It firstly moves the SP register into the register 0, which will be the parameter of the system function. Then we can jump to R3, which is the system function address. The final status of the RP will be like this diagram. We can put any commands in the CMD area to execute. It is a nice exploit, and the demo video of getting to the shell will be played later. Obviously, the router can be controlled by us from the devices in the local area network, such as the computer connected to the router. Then, how about the outside? Unfortunately, the answer is also yes. We found that if the firewall of the router is closed, which is only a simple option in the configuration web page, we may control the router from all over internet. The map scan result from internet is shown on the screen. you can easily find the vulnerability port is opening and waiting for the attackers. Besides the previous router, we also collected many other similar vulnerabilities about IoT devices. For example, the router B, which opens the port 515, can be overflowed by user input or queue name, and we can use the exploit techniques like stack pivot and RP to break the stack non-executable, and leaking GOT address to bypass ASLR to execute the system function. The port is also exposed on the whole internet. Vulnerability is not limited in router. The web camera C had a stack overflow when parse the user and password string on the 8600 OD port. We will not present more details because of time limitation. If you are interested, please visit our website checkpoint.org for more information. According to our raw data, there are more than 46,000 of router B exposed on the internet, which can be directly controlled by attackers. The picture is the distribution map of the vulnerable routers. Obviously, the situation is not good. Singapore is also affected. What can we do next? The attackers can now penetrate into the local area networks and then use some other tools to get control of many other devices, which result in much bigger DDoS attacks, traffic monitor and hijack, and more. For example, the attacker can watch you from the point web camera. There are two backdoors in web camera D, which can be found by reverse engineering. Using the backdoor one, attacker can get the administrator's username and password directly by sending some magic strings. And in the backdoor 2, attackers can telnet on the web camera by default telnet username and password. By far, what can attackers do? First, they can scan the internet to find the vulnerable devices and get the root shell of the routers. Then they can surf in your network and get everything about you, even what are you doing. It seems more terrible than DDoS attack for ordinary people just like you and me. We have a demo video about those things. It's a room or a simple user, and in the attacker room, you can first open a port to listen to the waiting for the reverse shell, and we scan the internet to get the opening port of a router. Then we can use a script to send the shellcode and some payload. Then we wait for the reverse shell to connect us. Now the router connect us. We can then check if we are a root user. We can create a file and see the user ID is 0, so we are root. We then open the web camera inside the web camera, inside the local area network, but it requires password. But we can use another vulnerability to get the password. And we input the username and password and see inside the user's room. Now we can see maybe the credit card and maybe password. Thank you for watching. What may we lose now? Your online privacy, your online account and password, your daily life privacy, and even your credit card information if you had shown it somewhere in your web camera's wheel. Can we lose more? You might ask. Unfortunately, you can. There are many kinds of home security IoT devices like smart lock, intrusion alarm devices, or other monitor devices. Are there vulnerabilities in them? The answer is yes. In our program, we collected many security-related IoT devices vulnerabilities, such as default telnet password to get root access, unauthorized communication to control center forgery, failing to verify CA in remote control apps HTTPS implementation, allow the attackers to get the username and password. The picture on the left is one of the real exploit case moments in our program. Then the attackers can do nearly everything they want. The information and property loss may be inevitable, but don't worry, these vulnerabilities have been patched already, thanks to the Red Hat security researchers. What can we learn from the demos? It's true that there are intriguing bug hunting and exploit techniques, but I want to say that many of the serious bugs and exploit techniques are obvious and straightforward. The attack and defense level in IoT devices is quite low. So we need to pay more attention to IoT devices. Thank you.
When speaking of harms of vulnerabilities, it is often said that theoretically it is capable of doing blah blah. However, in Gipong, we do not like theoretically. We want to realize and prove it. So all of the following harms were realized and proved. In the left picture, it is a router. Many routers like this were pawned to monitor or hijack the network traffic. By using DNS hijack, the attacker can force the victim to access a malicious website, even though the domain name is correct. The attacker can also forward the traffic with IP tables rules, and then he can monitor the traffic, or even turn the router into a man-in-the-middle HTTP proxy. In the middle, they are IP cameras. They were pawned to watch user, literally watch user. After compromising the camera and get the root access, it is easy to get access to the live video or history video. For example, some cameras save the user's credential into a config file in plain text. Some of them can even be accessed through the Internet cloud service. In the right picture, it is a wearable device, a smartwatch for children. The watch can pair with a mobile phone app through Bluetooth. If the child with the watch gets too far away from the parents, the Bluetooth will lose the connection, and the mobile phone app will raise an alarm. However, the attacker can fake a device which connects to the mobile phone app and claims itself as the watch on the child. Then the parents won't be alarmed, even though the child is lost. The watch can also communicate through mobile network and tell the parents GPS location of the child. By hijacking the network traffic, the attacker can also log off the parent's account and get the location of the child. In the left picture, it's a pose. Several POS machines like it were pawned. They worked with mobile phone app. The consumer can do payment with a bank card on it. However, the owner of the POS machine or even a third party without a physical touch can be an attacker to pawn it. And he can get the token of the card holder. They can use the token within 24 hours to query transactions or steal money. Even more, they can duplicate the bank card with magnetic stripe. In the middle, it's a set of smart home devices. The devices have sensors on the door and knows when the user leaves home or come back. So they can be pawned to monitor the user's life pattern. They can also be used to turn on or turn off the user's appliances. They have the function of intrusion alarm, which can be pawned to be disabled. And as an interesting demo, a smart socket was controlled to send out a message of Weibo, which is called Chinese Twitter. In the right picture, it's a smart door lock. It can be controlled with a mobile phone app through Bluetooth. They can be pawned by the attacker to unlock the door without a physical touch. In the left picture, a drone was hijacked with frequency hopping signals. The control was taken over from the remote control. During the attack, the user wasn't able to control the drone with the remote control, but the attacker can control it through an Arduino board. In the right picture, a robot was hijacked, and it was controlled to transmit video and audio to the attacker. As a conclusion, we proved that IoT devices can be pawned to be peepers, to be thieves, etc. In the film Furious 7, they imagined a system called God's Eye. It can be used to compromise any device all over the world, and then find out a specific person through a microphone or a lens. It is a great weapon in the cyber world, but definitely a mess for normal people. Technically, we all know it's impossible. But if we don't take any action in IoT security, we are moving towards this chaos. Let's quickly review what we shared today. First, we talked about the situations of IoT security. There are large numbers of high-risk vulnerabilities, and they can do huge damages. However, the public haven't yet paid enough attention to it. Then we introduced some hotspots and blind spots in the security research of IoT. The most detailed part is attack vectors of IoT. We shared some common attack vectors in IoT and a detailed case study of routers and webcam. By exploiting the vulnerabilities, the attacker can penetrate from the internet into a webcam in the house. In the last section, we showed some harms which is proved to be able to be done by the IoT devices. Okay, that's all for our today's topic. Is there any question?
Very good talk. I want to ask whether your test router is all for mainland China?
No. there are also many famous routers which is made in which are actually American brands.
Oh, nice. Because I want to see whether how about the product, where they come from.
You mean which one?
Yeah, I mean, did you disclose the brand names of those routers in the report?
In this topic, in this lecture, I won't disclose the name of the brands.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Many IoT devices communicate with web servers. In your experience, how much of the IoT vulnerabilities are in the devices themselves, and how much are in the web servers that communicate?
Actually, because in our bug bounty program, we actually encourage the contestant to report the vulnerability in IoT devices itself. So actually, a big portion of the vulnerability we collected is in the IoT device itself, not in the server side. Yeah. Is there? Yeah.
You mentioned in the slide that 30,000 IoT startups in China without a security analyst role in their company. So is School Lab working with these startups? And how will you solve this problem? Because it's going to affect a lot of users.
这个解决，你说怎么解决？
他问到玄武。Actually, this recruitment website is not in China, but a global website. But the question is also able to be.
You mean what can we do to improve the users' security? We can make more.
For startup.
For startup. Maybe we can make more lectures about this. So then we can make many schedules in maybe the government may be deep into in the security and force them to make more secure IoT devices. The startups themselves usually didn't have the many money or many attention to the security. They only can just develop the features will cost them many money or times. It is very difficult for them to make the IoT devices more secure themselves. So we maybe need many law, maybe some schedule or something to push them. So that's our answer.
Yeah, actually, Xuanwu is a research lab, so maybe they have less to do with the startup companies. But in our program of Gilpang, we actually get contact with such startup companies. We have more contacts because we actually many vulnerabilities of the IoT devices they are made from the startup companies. We will get many vulnerabilities like that. And actually, Gilpang provides these kind of vulnerability to the startup companies for free. We don't charge them, and we can even share some knowledge with them. In this method, I think we can some kind of help those startup companies. Yeah.
So we were talking about incidents like that, right, wherein multiple IoT systems were compromised. Generally we see IoT systems are protected by NAT, say like, even if you have the fire alarms and stuff, they are behind a rack, which is not exposed to internet. So how do you think the propagation of Mirai and those kind of trojans or even payloads had persisted when most of the IoT devices
Actually, most of the IoT devices are behind a line, but they can get access to the internet. So when they are compromised, for example, the source of the target is the PC in the LAN, and the IoT devices get compromised by those kind of PC, and this IoT device just become a botnet. As long as they can get access to the internet, they can just attack any target in the internet.
Right. If you see IoT devices, it's always client-initiated connection. Say, even if it's a camera feed, it's always a phoning request sent to the server, and the server will never be able to reach to the client or point to the client. In that case, even we were talking about a huge invasion in terms of Mirai, right? So in that case, maybe one PC was infected inside an organization, but to spread this across different organizations and different parts of the globe, don't you think there's a physical attack vector that is required in order to spread this kind of trojans or even payload across different parts of the globe? I mean, don't you think there's a physical attack vector required in order to spread this the payload across the globe?
Do you mean that because there's a physical gap between the different?
Yeah, to make it very specific, say there could be multiple portals in Singapore, and the fire alarm in this hotel is behind a NAC, and this cannot spread. Say even if you install a malware or a worm in there, it has no reach to spread to the adjacent portal because it's behind a NAC, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think this amount of mass spread happened as part of Mirai or any other attacks on IoT?
In our demos, we first point the router, then we can forward any devices inside the LAN to come to outside the whole network. It's in our demo. So if you can get the router shell or any routers exposed on the internet, you can get everything in the LAN.
And follow-up question on that is, you had shown the demo wherein you were able to unlock the smart locks and everything.
Yeah.
So on IP, have you tried it on from internet? Because the attacker is also on the same VLAN as the target IoT device. Have you tried the same demo, trying to connect from the internet? Because you have to first compromise the Wi-Fi router's password in order to get into the LAN, so that you can even initiate a traffic to that IoT target device. So was this demo also done from open and free internet to?
This is from open internet. The router and the attacker are in the internet, and the web camera is in the LAN of the router. So we need first point the router. The router is exposed on the internet. So we first point the router, and then we use the router shell or the router to forward everything inside the LAN to the outside. So we can use our attacker PC to surf inside the LAN and get the web camera. So you may need some IP tables command to get everything outside.
The reason why I'm curious is we have your data showed that a majority of the attacks that is on IoT doesn't require any dependable controls. But if you see, as we just spoke, it becomes evident that you need to pawn the router first in order to get beyond any of the IoT devices which is behind the router, right? So do you see a contradiction here in terms of the data was over 60 or 70 odd percent?
Actually, I mentioned that for 61% of the vulnerabilities, they are exploited alone. But I mean that they are exploited alone to pawn a single target, single device, not a system. Because when you say that, for example, the fire alarm is in this line, this is a system, not a single fire alarm device. So to pawn a system, we need to employ more vulnerabilities in different devices to penetrate into the system, not a single vulnerability in a single device. Is there other questions? Okay, thank you for listening.